Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be informed, encouraged, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, best-selling author of the book Stay the Course and certified leadership trainer, Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services from every guest, as well as the host himself, yours truly. Now let the fun begin. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as the Going North podcast, baby, the Going North podcast. We're bringing some fabulous humans from across the globe. I got to thank my good buddy MF. And no, it's not what you're thinking. My man, Michael Finkley, baby. My man is hooking me up with one heck of a powerful guest today because, man, oh man, the chocolate's being spread everywhere, my friends. Because not only do we have an author today, we have an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and his CEO of his own company, 2020 Living, which helps people see a better tomorrow through vision creation and proper goal setting. This man has worked with multi-million dollar enterprises, multiple multi-million dollar enterprises. And my man loves the youth because they keep him on top of his toes and keep him inspired so they can be inspired and so he can stay inspired himself. So let's give it up for our man, the earth himself, Geo Derice. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I was a little worried. I was like, is he gonna say my last name correct? So, because I was like, you the intro is so good. We don't want to go and fumble the ball at the 1 yard line, but you nailed it. You nailed it.
Yeah. It was almost like the Green Bay Packers at one point this year at their red zone. It's like, if they're in the red zone, is guaranteed, except in the playoffs. I've had a couple playoff fumbles, so not today, thank God. Not today.
No, that's awesome, man. I'm glad to be here, bro.
Yes, indeed. It's a pleasure to have you, my man. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, a man of many talents, multiple books, and believes in really helping people to be the best that they can be and not the breast they can be, man. So for those who've been living under like 25 rocks, mind filling us in on who is the wonderful Geo himself?
Yeah, shucks, man. It's a loaded question. But for me, I'm a believer of dreams. That's my big thing. And I want to help everybody be able to see what that actually could look like. So that's really why the idea of 2020 living came. I felt like if people could actually see clearly where they were going and where they could end up, that they would actually be excited to live in the pursuit of getting there. And so I've just committed my life to just doing that on many spectrums, whether it's speaking to youth or whether it's encouraging people to go and tell their stories through books. We both are authors, you and and I through my first book done program, help people do that, like so that they can go ahead and be great servant leaders and help other people go ahead and do that. So it's just a way of extending it, because I really just believe that there's just so much more that we can do and experience. And I would hate for someone to, in their last days, live with the regret of what could have been, when we could actually do something about it now.
Amen to that, man. So did you get any flack last year during the whole 2020 living thing?
Yeah, that you messing me up. Like, listen, I had so many plans for last year. So this, I've never said this on the podcast, so this is fun. So I had this whole plan of like, listen, 2020 is the year. This is the year my company's been waiting for. Like, we're coming out guns blazing. And so when that year came, the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm going to run the New York City Marathon. It's the 40th anniversary. This will be an amazing time to like put the company on the map and say, hey, why did you run the marathon this year? And they'll be like, well, my company is called 2020 Living. If I was ever going to run a marathon, it should be in 2020. And then the pandemic hit and the marathon got canceled and all this stuff. And it's like, all right, well, I mean, what do I do now? I'm not going to call it 2021 Living. Right. So I am grateful that the company name derived from 2020 from a vision perspective and not a year perspective. So that way we still can carry on the mission of the company, even though the year has changed. And for many of us, we're glad that it has changed. But whatever.
Oh man, because I'm pretty sure you had that question at least once.
Oh my gosh! Like I just told you, man. Like I really thought that I was like, man, this is gonna be it. And the crazy thing is, some great things did come out of the year, but it was just like, I said it was a coming out party, so it was like something where I thought it was just gonna be like kaboom, like everybody's gonna know this stuff, and then when those things happen, it kind of derailed a lot of ideas, and so you had to kind of pivot and do some things differently. And that's kind of what I talk about. One of the best things, my brother, we talk about this a lot. He's an NFL scout, and I would always ask questions like, yo, what is the skills? I know you got to jump high, you got to catch, speed, all this different stuff, but what's the thing that is under the radar but is extremely important? And he was saying their ability to adapt. Like because you go into a college system, you do very well and you've excelled in it, but now you're going into the professional game where that system, although hopefully they will draft you for the characteristics and see how they can use it in their system, but it's still a different system. And so the one who's not able to learn how to adjust into a new system, to adjust to a new language, their talent will shrink in terms of being able to perform because they're not able to adapt. And so anything 2020 has taught us is, being able to be present enough to see the changes. And I just finished, I don't know if you've ever read this, Dom, but the book Who Moved My Cheese. I've heard it so many times,
Yeah.
by Spencer Johnson, but I just read it recently. And as I was listening to it, it really, if there was a book to have, if someone was to like, yo, I promise you need to read this book before 2020, I think that would have been the perfect book to read, because if you could sum up 2020 in a title, it would be Who Moved My Cheese, or something related to it. So Spencer Johnson, I'm giving you a plug, man. Hopefully you use it. But 2020 was definitely a year of change, whether you liked it or not.
Man, I've read that book, I think at least twice since it was a small book, and I can't believe like it just came to me like you like spoke into existence because it's so true. Like of all the years for that title's theme to be based around, it would have been last year because everybody would be like, "Where'd my cheese go?" It
Yeah,
was
where
so
my
good.
cheese, it was so good. I had a plan for this new cheese in 2019 that I was looking forward to in 2020, and that cheese has moved. And so what's interesting is even the cheese you were looking forward to changed, right? And so now you're realizing, oh snap, now I gotta go and pursue a new cheese, and it's not even the cheese that I wanted to chase. And it's like, oh, now you're all over the place and back and forth. And so, the one thing that I loved about the book was the idea of that change is constant. It's going to happen. And so if you are able to create skills and mindsets that work in any condition, kind of like we were joking around about sports before we got on, but it was like, you want to have a good defense because it travels. So it's good in the good weathers, it's good in the bad weather. And so I think mindset and skills allow you to be able to travel the trials and tribulations of life.
Amen to that. And heck, even backing up a bit, I love what you mentioned when you talked about your brother being an NFL scout and just that one skill under the radar that they need to have is just adaptability. And like with that in particular, that's so darn true because a lot of folks, heck, even last year forced us to be adaptable. A lot of folks may have, well, heck, even me included at times, just has trouble dealing with change, and being forced to change is something that we all have to deal with in life. So, is there anything else that, from your experience, you think that may be under the radar for life that folks need to probably add to their repertoire of making it a better one?
Well, I would say one of the things that I was is very big is experimentation. And let me tell you what I mean by that. So if you remember, I think what happens is there's this big fear of what I don't know, right? So we have fear of failure, we have fear of the unknown. and they've this whole idea of that fear has killed, a lot of dreams, right? And so I believe one of the ways to overcome that is through experimentation. And so when we were kids, I don't want to age myself, but when I was a kid, I don't want to talk for you, right? when I was a kid, when I was a kid, and we would take science class, we would do these experiments. And in the beginning of an experiment, for those who remember, we had to come up with an hypothesis, which was just basically an educated guess. And then when you got to the end of the experiment, if your educated guess was proven to be wrong, you never interpreted that as failure. What you did is you interpreted that as discovery. And so I think what happens is if we start experimenting, we can actually remove the fear of failure, and we can actually press in to the fear of the unknown versus trying to avoid it, and look at it as one big, great experiment that at the end of it, you're going to either be proven correct or you're going to be a person who's learned something they did not know before.
Solid right there, baby. Another gem from Geo himself. That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's right, indeed. That's right. Folks gonna have a belly dancer skirt of gems after this interview, baby.
Yeah, no, 100%. We might have to transcribe it. Like Geo's Gems Part 2 just came right out of this podcast interview. So
there you go. And speaking of book titles, the most recent one being Geo's Gems, I believe the one before was The Thirst is Real, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Yes, indeed, man. So is the thirst still real, my man? In a good
Uh,
way?
uh, yeah, no, yeah, in a good way. Thank you. I'm married. Like I got the thirst is not real in in those other areas, but now it's still real. It's still real. It's rooted out of purpose, and so without sounding cliche, it's the air you breathe, right? It's like that's the purpose. Like Oprah talks about that. Like when you find your purpose, it's like fresh air. And so I'm still into the game of inspiring and motivating and helping people see their dreams come true, maximize their true potential. That has not changed. So the thirst is real in that regard. And I've always joked around with people and said that if inspiration was against the law, I'd be arrested because I wouldn't be able to find a way to not be able to do it. Like it just oozes out of me. And so it's still, the thirst is still real, which is why, I birthed the second book, Geo's Gems, and I have a lot more that I want to go ahead and write and share, and hopefully help people get the clarity that they need so they could see that future that I know that they're capable of.
Amen indeed, baby. Amen indeed. So my man said clarity. So what helped you to really find the clarity for your purpose now, man? Because I remember you had a couple ideas of where you wanted your life to go, but a couple things made you redirect and pivot, man. So what helps you find that clarity, my man?
A bunch of mistakes, right? you know, a bunch of misses. I tell people like, there was a book I read called Go for No, and the subtitle was when yes is the destination, no is the way to get there. And so I was like, man, that's crazy how if I get more no's, I'm gonna get more yeses. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, if I get a lot of wrongs, right, I'm gonna find the right. And so from whether I started off as a personal trainer, and then the story, which is true, is, hey, I quit personal training. It's like, hey, but Jill, you tell people not to give up. Well, it wasn't in alignment with what I was, really about. Like I wasn't living it out authentically. I was the guy who told the lady who I was training, hey, you need to get that grilled chicken and salad right after you finish training. And then the minute I would finish doing the training and I would clock out, I was at McDonald's ordering the number two. And when they asked me, when they asked me, do you want to supersize it? It was not a question. It was absolutely yes, we want to do that. And so when you start doing that over and over again, and then you start to feel like you're living incognito, and you're like, I hope no one from the gym follows me here, then that's maybe a sign that maybe this is not the thing you should be doing. And so, that pivoted, I switched from that to, okay, let me work behind the scenes. I like to help people get in shape, or businesses. And so I worked with a mentor of mine who I was studying at the time, and we got to work behind the scenes and do some business stuff. And that's where like my appetite for like business grew. And then that's when I was able to learn the power of information, the power of knowledge, the power of masterminds, the power of reading books. You know, you hear that quote about the rich people got bigger libraries than TVs, and obviously that's not true because the TVs are super big. Nonetheless, we just think that the TV is small and the library is big. No, the library is big, but the TVs is very large as well. So you know, they ain't over here with no 27-inch TV and a big library. Like they got the 100-inch TV in the libraries a lot larger than that. And so as I was going through that and seeing it, I started to find the things that worked. And one of the things for those who are listening to this that I really want to just share is that your purpose is the same. It just may look in like a different car. So if you go look for your purpose and you're like, my purpose is a red Corvette, and a white Corvette comes up, maybe your purpose was Corvette. It just wasn't red though. It's white. And I think sometimes what happens is we think like, oh, well, I'm this. And then it's like, yeah, but if we break that down, what you really are is that. And so what I realized with my purpose was I was always a coach. I was coaching high school football 1 year removed from high school. So like, you know, like I was a senior and then the next September I'm coaching offense at a high school level. So I was a coach in high school and then I became a personal trainer and I was now coaching someone to how to maximize their health and fitness. And then I went into business and I helped somebody to and coach them on how to go and grow their business. And then you go and say, okay, now I'm helping people with inspiration and now I'm helping people write books. And the reality is that I am still in the same role this whole time of coach. And it's like, wow, like this is what I am. Like I'm a coach at heart. It's just a matter of what color is it? Is it a white Corvette, a red Corvette, a green Corvette? But nonetheless, it's a Corvette. And so I think it's important for people to realize that, like, what's the commonality with all the things that you've done? Because you haven't done all those things by accident. Something drew you to those things. What do all those things have in common? And then maybe that can give you clarity for what your next should be or where you should be pressing in more into.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I love the Corvette analogy, dude. That's like the first time I've ever heard that because it's so darn good. It's like, oh man, my purpose in life is a red Corvette. Wait, wait a second. This white Corvette, it's the color of nature's cocaine known as the snow. Like this might be better. Like I might have some Miami Vice swag with this one, man. You know what? Give me the white one. And it's like, hey, Corvette's the purpose here. Like you can still do what you desire to do out of life. It just may be in a different color, maybe a different design. Like at the end of the day, you're a coach, and all the other mistakes led to the manifestation of your coaching success. So congratulations, my man.
Thank you, man.
Yes, sir, indeed. Yes, sir, indeed. So my goodness, that's what I'm talking about. So since this is far from your first rodeo, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game on these podcasts?
This is a good. I love that question, and I answer it many different ways. But the one thing I would say on this side is who needs to be in this seat. And what I mean by that is you often see whoever the featured person is, right? So whether it's an author, celebrity, whatever the case may be. And so they get the light, right? They get that sunshine, the spotlight is on them. And what often doesn't happen or what isn't spoken about enough is who actually belongs in that spotlight with you. Like who allowed this spotlight moment to even occur. And so I don't, you know, obviously you always hear people want to hear about the successes. How did you do this? And they want the practical steps, but it's also, Les Brown called this only OOP, I think, only OQP, which is like only quality people. And I think the people you have ensures that the bus arrives at the right destination or the train arrives at the right destination. So the question I would want to really illuminate is the idea of like who allowed you to get in this spotlight? And the answer would be my parents and my wife. Let me attack the parents part. So my parents kept me on lockdown. I'm not ashamed to say it. They kept me on lockdown for like 29 years. I didn't get free until I got engaged. Well, technically until I got married. right? So like I was living in the house with my parents till I was like past 30, and I always was frustrated with all the things I could not do, right? You can't go to this party. You can't sleep at this person's friend house. You can't come home at this time. You don't go to the club. You don't do this. You can't get your ears pierced. You can't get no tattoo. You can't get a part in your hair. Um, you go to church on Sunday, even though Michael Jordan just came back and played the Indiana Pacers, and he, wearing number 45, and you got to go to church, like right, like you like, and you got to call somebody on the payphone and say how much Michael got, right? So you got to all the I can'ts, and then now that I look back at it, I look at all the things that they kept me on lockdown for, and I started to think about it, and it was like, well, what do you lock down something that's not a prized possession?
Mm.
And so you think about it as a kid, I'm not thinking that way, but as an adult now, I'm like, what was it about me that you were so worried would be contaminated that you had to quarantine me essentially from the world so that I don't get exposed to something that I probably should not be exposed to? And so I thank them for that, because I've seen a lot of people be exposed to certain things that they're still dealing with now, right? So I could say, okay, I was on lockdown until 30, I'm about to turn 37, but these 7 years of freedom, I operate differently than someone who had the 30 years of freedom and now is in 7 years of captivity trying to figure out how to get out of jail, and they can't, mentally or emotionally. And so I'm thankful, and that's why I want to give them, they always say give their flowers to people while they can still receive them. And so I just want to give them that opportunity by even saying it on this, that, I'm grateful for the lockdown, and because it reminded me, like, man, like you're set apart. You're not like everyone else. And so I'm grateful that they did that, and they made sacrifices. Every time they locked me down, there was other things that happened. So I wasn't allowed to go play basketball on the street with everybody. But what my dad did was say, well, I get it. You can't play basketball with the kids in the street because we don't want you to do that. And so what he did was on Saturdays, he would take us to the park and allowed us to go play basketball from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. And so, like, you look at this guy who went to work all day, all week long, and then we get to do a 12, 14-hour shift at the park. We took a halftime, we went to McDonald's, came back, like, and he never complained. And so while he may have taken some stuff away, we still got the stuff, high quality version of it, right? So like maybe, yeah, I played basketball every day, but I ain't play for no 12 hours. Like, you ain't play no basketball for 12 hours. So we had that. So I'm grateful for them for that and the sacrifices they made to ensure that my potential could be realized, or for me to actually even believe I have that. So that's number one. Then number two goes, like, when I say my wife, and I say like that, she's so critical and is deserving of sharing the spotlight, right? That might be a title for my book, Sharing the Spotlight. I don't know. Anyway, so like, right, so like, right, so
Go for it.
I might have to do it. I'm gonna write this down once we're done. Um, the idea, what I said with my wife, is that the biggest thing was like 2020 Living was born literally. Today might be its birthday, if I'm not mistaken. This is bad. Like, I feel like an old parent already when you forget your child's birthday. You're like, I know it's in February, but the date escapes me. But I do know February was the day I started my company, and that was 5 years ago. And it didn't really start hitting till like year 4, and that's kind of in the middle of the pandemic too. And so I looked at that, and I would say my wife, because someone had to allow me to make the mistakes I made, or like, or give me the space to land. I think that's very important. I always tell people, like, when you get married and stuff, you want to make sure you marry somebody who, you know, compliments you, but someone who allows you to fall down so you can get up, right? You, like, those falls allow me to grow, learn from the mistakes. She gave me that space though, right? You want to give someone the space to land, to fall, to pick themselves up, and without judgment. So it never felt like, hey, well, you kind of got to let this dream go. It's like, I never felt that. And even when I started to go and entertain those ideas of, I kind of got to let this go because it's not working, and I saw this opportunity, I would look complimentary. Her words of, well, I don't want that version of you, was so critical to me. It was like, yo, like, you ever seen, like, I'm looking here and I'm like, yeah, I knew I liked you. I knew I loved you. I know I said I do, but and I know you said I do, and I know you said through thick and thin, and for richer and poorer, and all these different things that you say. And hey, I'll eat ramen noodles if we have to. And it's like, yeah, that's cute to say when you got that beautiful wedding dress on, but when you still really eating the ramen noodles, you okay? Like, are you still? Is that still the same thing? You feel the same way? And so for her to be willing to go through that and not throw it in your face, right? So she didn't eat ramen noodles with a look on her face like I shouldn't be eating the ramen noodles. It was like this is just what we do. But she believed in the vision of what I had and allowed me to go and create it. And the picture was never always clear. I got lost a lot. Um, but I didn't feel the pressure to get it perfect, right? Like I felt like she let me make the mistakes. And so again, my parents and her, deserve a lot of tremendous credit for the person that you are talking to today.
Amen to that. Amen to that. There you go. Got to give them the flowers, baby. That's right. Give them the roses, baby. That's right. Give them the daffodils, baby. That's right. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So many powerful points, indeed, especially with the protection from your parents like that. Because it's like, yeah, as a kid, you're like, man, I want to be free. Darn it. Why I got to be in here? Why I got to use a payphone to find out the school? Why in the world? No. And when you grow up and you realize, oh, that's it's a prized possession here. Like I'm parents' prized possession, the child here. It's like, hey, they're protecting their investment and it's paying off in the future. Like sometimes we always want to be in the microwave generation, want things here and now, and we just don't realize like, hey, we still got to focus on the payoff. So in addition to probably your parents' wisdom, is there anything else that may have helped you to continue to focus on the payoff in life?
I would be remiss if I said my faith didn't play a role in it. I always felt, God always had a purpose for me, and I just gotta stay in the game long enough to be able to see it. So I feel like without knowing, like, yo, God got a plan for you, bro. Like for real, it's easy to get lost. And so when I see people who are living aimlessly or feeling defeated, I can understand how how that is. Like, how is that possible? Like, it's possible because you just never were told that there's a greater purpose for you. Like, and so when I think of this idea of, how did you stay the course, or how did and that small plug on your book, right? Stay the course. So like right, like how did you stay the course? It really comes boils down to like I feel like I'm in God's hands, and he's just positioning me, and it doesn't always get it right because some I have the choice to make decision. I have the chance to make decisions, and they're not always the right ones. But I feel like I will always be redirected. It's almost like a GPS. Like you could go your own way, thinking that I know how to get here quicker. And the beautiful thing about a GPS is it never goes and tells you, yo, stupid, I told you go right and you went left. Now you stuck in a traffic jam. Ha ha. That's your fault. Don't you ask me for no new directions now. Your GPS doesn't do that. And so I'm grateful that God is has done the same, where when I've made wrong turns, he didn't go and say, ha ha ha, ha, there you go, too bad for you. It's like, no, it's like I want you to get to your destination even more than you do. And so me making fun of you getting it wrong is not going to help you get there. And so I'm just grateful for the grace from God, from being able to go ahead and again, it goes back to the same thing. You protected me. There's a purpose. You've allowed me to be wrong, but you haven't eliminated me from the fight or the journey of where I'm supposed to go. So I think that that's the glue, right? So God bless me with those parents. God bless me with my wife. God is the center of it. Like everything's, those are the branches that I just spoke of my parents and my wife. Are God's the trunk or the roots or whatever you want to. I don't know trees, man. Like I haven't taken science in a while, but God's the core, like the vine, the vine. So that's everything.
Amen to that. So not only is a man giving you gems, but he told you what the glue is to keep the gems together. That's what I'm talking about.
Listen, man, I might have to take you on the road. Like I'm liking this energy. Like,
That's
you,
right.
you,
Next
you
book.
keep you keep this up. You might not be able to get away from me. So I love it, man. No, it's absolutely true, man. Like you said, it's the glue that keeps the gems together. That's so good, man. Sheesh, that's good. I like it.
There you go, man. It'll be like Murray's hair cream, except it's gonna be your face on the cover of the glue container, man.
You always yell. You better stop reading my Instagram. I need some Murrays. I need some Murrays. Like I didn't get to go to the barber yet. I need my hair to be pressed down.
Was it Officer Chappelle shows like, yeah, a lifetime supply of Murray's hair cream. And you're like, why is it one container? It is a lifetime supply.
Oh man, I'm telling you.
Oh man. But yes indeed, yes indeed. So my goodness, so being a man of faith, sometimes it who heck am I kidding? Yeah, sometimes definitely with life it's going to be hard, and sometimes harder than 5 rocks, if not 105 rocks. So what keeps you focused on God during the storms of life, man?
What keeps me? The difficulty of that question is making it seem like I kept myself. The reality is what keeps me is that God keeps chasing me. So because of that, no matter what, I'm always like he listen, like I'm always gonna get kept. Like he's keeping me, right? So I don't do anything specifically. I do think that you need to be present and aware of the fact he's chasing you, so that you don't grow weary and you don't do stuff you don't need to be doing. Because I know it's a lot harder for me. I've realized that when I've tried to outrun God, I get very tired and I always lose. So like, so it's like your dad. Like you ever play like tag, but you know you're the fast person,
Oh
and so
yes.
because you're the fast person, you just know I just gotta outrun you. Eventually, you'll get tired and you won't chase me anymore. I've played tag with God. He don't get tired. Like, like, I thought I was quick. I thought I was shifty. I thought I was like Barry Sanders, being able to have the best agility in the world, the best ankles. You ain't never seen ankles like these. But he's swifter. Like he's shifty. He's consistent. He's continuously pursuing me. And just sidebar, like I typically get emotional when I sit in that thought because I also don't feel like I'm something worth chasing endlessly. And so I now have to adapt the mentality that, well, my opinion doesn't matter, because my opinion of I'm not worth chasing, that's an opinion. His fact though is he keeps chasing me. So I either gotta think God's crazy and he's chasing me, but he doesn't understand that it's an empty chase, or maybe he's right and maybe I should just believe him that something in me is worth chasing. And so that's really what keeps me is that when I don't feel like it, like you just said, like the storms come, there's always if you look for it, he's always showing you an out. Sometimes we just refuse to see it. There's always an out. There's always an out. There's always hey, I'm here. Um, but the question is, are you, do you see the situation clearly? Do you look at it from a 2020 perspective to be able to say, oh, snap, there he is. Like he's there the whole time. They always say, like, when they say 1+1 = 3, it's like he's the one that you didn't account for. Right. So that's why it's 3. So that's the way I would answer that, honestly, is, once you really have that encounter, it's just genuine and it's a relentless pursuit. He really, really does chase you. And so, in the middle of the storms, he's right there with you. You have some friends when you got a storm, they kind of dip. He's not that type of person.
That's what I'm talking about. And you said something very powerful, my man. Like something in me is worth chasing, and that's just the power of God's love right there. Like that needs to belong somewhere. I don't know if social media posts or books somewhere, man. But that's like true self. Love is that when you have love for God and you realize his love for you, you realize, oh man, there's something to me worth chasing. Let me find out what it is and give that back to the world and see how it goes and just really help the world even more. Heck, maybe even lead some more souls to Christ himself when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I almost sometimes wonder, and it's unfortunate. And this is where sometimes my prayer is that people get a glimpse of it. Is what is it like to live knowing or believing, not knowing, but believing that you don't have anything worth chasing or you are not worth chasing. Like that's tough. And I believe like the toughest person to be in a relationship with is someone who doesn't have love for themselves. Now I'm not talking about to the point where it's excessive, right? So it's not like you love yourself so much you don't see others at all, but to be void of love for yourself also doesn't allow like it's not realistic for someone else to do that for you. Like it's called self love for a reason. It's called self esteem for a reason. And so you're putting out what someone else wants you want someone else to double down on. So when you think about you're the X, right? So if we want to 2x it, 10x it, 20x it, 100x it, that's cool. But if you being X are zero, then it doesn't matter what you put before the X. It's going to equal zero. So a million times zero is zero. So I think it's so important when you, like you just said, to like have to get that understanding of man, like I'm worth loving, right? Because God doesn't stop chasing me. Like what, like why? Like when you're like, yo, man, I want to give up. What's that thing that just says, nah, not yet? No, there's another way. Like what's the thing that just keeps on like bothering me and telling me there's more or telling me there's another way? Like oh, like that's that chase. That's that stuff where you're like, yo, man, I quit. And then you're like, no, 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 you don't quit. And you got that one thing that happens, and it may not be big. Like I don't want people to say, "Hey, one thing happened," and of course you switch course, you won the lotto. Like I'm not talking about that. But what I'm talking about is that something that gets you off your merry-go-round of this is doom and gloom, and something happens, and sometimes we commit to the doom and gloom and miss it. That's what I was saying earlier about the red Corvette and the white Corvette. If you're so stuck on the red Corvette, the white Corvette could be parked right in front of your house, and you just keep looking for the another car, and the whole time the car that was for you is right there. It's right there. And Dom, I kid you not. There's a funny thing I want to share with you. I was on FaceTiming with my brother while he was somewhere scouting, and he had a cap on, and he was like, "Yo, man, like I had a hat. I don't know where it is." And I'm sitting here and I'm on FaceTime, and I'm like looking at him with the hat on, and I'm like, what does he mean? He don't know where the hat is. It's on him, and he would touch the top of his head, and he felt his head, but he didn't feel the hat, not remembering that he had a visor on the whole time. So when he touched the top of his head, of course he didn't feel the hat because he had a visor on, but he couldn't see. He wasn't looking directly at himself, and so he thought he didn't have it. And I think for a lot of people, we think we don't have it, and the scariest thing is you might actually be wearing it already.
Mm.
You looking all over the world for it, and what happened is you chose to look for it with your eyes. You didn't look for it with your heart. Your heart is on the inside of you, and so the thing you're looking for, it's inside. But when you use your eyes, you're trying to find it somewhere external. And I would just argue that I believe that everything that you've ever seen always came out of the dark place of the inside first before it ever came outside.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's so powerful right there, man. That's right. It's like the classic if the snake if it was a snake, it would have bit you. It's just with the whole time and you just didn't see it.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, no, it's a big one. It's a big one. But if people really grab hold to that, it'll really change everything else, man. Like that attitude, that perspective of like, oh snap, I didn't know. And like once you know though, like you can't unknow it. You may forget it, but it's there.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. So many gems, baby, so many gems. And coming down to the glue that holds it all together, baby. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And it ain't even Elmer's glue, it's Geo's glue. That's what I'm talking
Oh man, I remember that.
about. Woo. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time in the year of 2021, with all of your amassed knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Try more stuff. Try more. Right. Like I think that's all I would say. Try more. There's so much. Um, there's so many things that you get from doing. Right. You either learn to do it right or you learned how to not do it. But not doing it at all, you kind of forfeit the lessons from it. So I would just say if I was my 25-year-old version of myself, dang, that's a tough one too. Because I like to try more, but if I'm thinking 25, that I'm torn between the try more and really get to know who you are. That's that. If I had to pick between those two, I would say the self awareness piece is bigger. Know you more. We went to school our whole lives studying everyone else. No one ever told you to get a degree in you. So you ever think like Dom, like you know what Michael Jordan ate for breakfast before a game, but you don't. But if somebody asks you what's your best breakfast, you take more than a second to answer. That's a problem.
Hmm.
That's a problem when you're like, yo, well, what's your favorite? What's Beyonce's favorite color? Oh, teal. What's your favorite color? I mean, red sometimes, black. I'm like, yo, what you mean? How you know Beyonce's with certainty and yours is a question mark? And I think like that I say that from a comical standpoint, but there's obviously deeper questions that we should be exploring. And it's like, yo, you don't know you, and then we get upset that everyone else can't figure us out. Like you didn't you've been taking the class for your whole life. You ain't pass it. Like you want me to pass it? I just met you. You know, and so I think because we've never been told that. We've never been told, yo, really get to know you, get to know yourself, get to know what makes you tick, get to know what makes you excited, get to know what upsets you, and understand that that's unique to you, and don't go and try to be what everybody else wants you to be, right? Like don't be a carbon copy. Those things are never worth as much as the original, right? So you don't want to be a replica. Get to know yourself, understand what you love, understand what you don't like, and be honest with yourself. Like, I think that self-awareness piece is so big and it leads to mental health. Like, so then you learn, oh, this is what makes me tick. Then you know, like, what job to take, what relationships to be in. All those things, all the answers are embedded in that self-love. Like the Bible will say, love others the way you love yourself, right? And it's like, yeah, but the part that we say it so openly, but the part we don't realize is the love yourself part. So now if I don't love myself well, how can I then what type of love am I distributing? When it says it's telling me that the one that I give me, I need to give you. Well, I don't give me nothing. Well, I don't want to be around you because I don't want that. I don't want that version of it. So I think that that's important. An important point. Like I really want you to take you. I want you to be. I did this presentation recently called Selfish, and it was a play on the way the TV show Blackish, and there's grownish and there's mixish and all this stuff. And I was like, yo, let me write one on selfish. And it was like, what is that about? And I was like, well, the best way to get to the best version of you is to know you on a deeper level. And so selfish is like you want to be more self-aware. You need self-esteem. You need self-growth. You need self-care. All these things. All that starts with self-awareness. So I would say, man, make sure that you are constantly enrolling in a class that allows you to get to meet you on a regular basis, and then always challenge yourself to meet another part of you that you haven't met. And the way you do that is by the second thing I was talking about, which is try stuff. The more things you try, the more stuff you know.
Amen to that, baby. Amen to that. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And don't worry, it's all good. Some people have three pieces of advice to give to their younger self. Some have one or more, but it's okay. It's okay. Number doesn't matter as long as it's some good advice to really take home. So usually asked to It's usually the promote yourself question, but before that, this just popped in my mind. So I know a man probably asked himself a lot of questions about self awareness. So if you were to give listeners at least two questions to take home to ask themselves to make themselves more self aware, what would they be?
Where do I want to go? Right. So it speaks to your future. Where do you want to go? Like, where do you want to end up? I would say that's a very important question. And the key part is, where do you want to go? Not where your mama wanted you to go, not where your papa wanted you to go, not where your significant other wanted you to go. Where do you want to go? So that you can speak to that. And I'll ask the other question is, what did you learn today? What did you learn today? What did you learn today? There's a story about a guy who won a Nobel Peace Prize, and they asked him, "What was the one? What was the thing that helped you succeed so much?" And he said, "My dad and my parents. Every time at the dinner table, they always ask me, what did I learn today? What did I learn today?" Right, and that's rooted in questions. And so when you said like, what are those two questions? Where are you trying to go, and what did you learn today? Because I believe that you want to be a lifelong learner. Because the more you learn, the more potential you have to earn, the more potential you have to impact. Like, and they're listening to you. I need them to know, like, yo, this guy was well read. He said something that triggered me. And hopefully my enthusiasm over the stuff that I've read will make you want to go and pick up a book too. And, I don't care which book you go pick up. I mean, go just pick one up. Like, open a book up. I would love for you to open up, Geo's Gems, The Thirst is Real, Stay the Course that Dom wrote, and, things of that nature. But I want you to just develop an appetite for reading. And I'm not saying you're going to love it today. I didn't love it in the beginning. So it's not 5 books a month. It was not something I ever aspired or thought that would ever happen. I graduated college, and this is not a humble brag. This is an embarrassing brag that I graduated college without reading a book. Like, I never read a book cover to cover and graduated college. That doesn't speak to now. I always wanted to be a life hacker, so that's also I found ways to get around that. But again, I would tell you that that's one of the things that I wish that's one of the shortcuts I wish I never took. I wish I would have developed that muscle earlier. And so if you're listening to this right now, there is no better time to develop that muscle of reading, that desire to want to learn, than right now. And whatever, pick the shortest book. Who Moved My Cheese is like 90 pages or something. Like, when I got the audio book, it said an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, what? How long is this book? Is super short. If the audio book is an hour and change, I think Obama's book is like 19 to 20 hours, this last book. So like, pick something small. Don't go and try to go and run a marathon on the first day. Just go around the block real quick. So pick a book that you can read, and Sumu Machi's might be a great place for you to start in terms of that. And there's another book called Peaks and Valleys by the same author, Spencer Johnson, but they're quick reads just so that that muscle gets warmed up again. And then, you can go and see that, and you'll open a book and be like, oh, snap. And Dom, like, it was crazy. I had given my book to a group of students one time, and the girl, she said to me, and this is probably one of the greatest testimonials, reviews I've ever received. She said, Geo, The Thirst is Real is the first nonfiction book I've ever read in my life. I
Nice.
said, wow, thank you for that. She said, but here's the thing I'm excited about. Until you wrote your book, the nonfiction category or genre was not even ever going to be scratched. I now have read your book, and now it's opened up a whole category of information that was once locked and was never going to be pursued.
Mm.
This is what I'm saying when I'm saying, like, I want to stretch. They say if you stretch a person's mind, it never returns back to its original state. I want to stretch you. When I say grow into your true potential is a lot more than what you think it is now. But how do you know that if you don't let something go in and see that, yo, snap, this is a size. I put a size 12, foot in a size 10 shoe. The size 10 shoe gonna be a 10 and a half, 11 by the time I'm done. Right? You're gonna stretch that shoe, but you gotta let that new information come out so you can get rid of the old that you have been carrying around.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Even the fire department had to show up because the man was bringing the heat, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
That's hilarious.
Oh, man. So, for those who want to stretch themselves and grab some of your materials to keep up with all the stuff that you're bringing into the world, what's the best way for folks to keep in contact with the man with all the gems known as Geo?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram. It's Geo Derice, so it's GEO D as in Doug, ERICE. Look me up on Facebook. I'm same name, Geo Derice. Twitter is the same thing, Geo Derice. So LinkedIn, Geo Derice. You could go on there. You'll be able to see what am I up to. I'm on there regularly, so you'll know what new stuff, what new books are coming out, what new projects are you working on, what books have you read lately, Geo. All of those things you'll find across those channels. But I'm heavy on Instagram, so if you were to go and choose one out of the five that I just said, that would be the one that I would use. But Geo Derice on Instagram, give me a follow. I promise you I'll follow you back. Let me know one of the gems that you got from this podcast. I would love to know what stood out to you, and how you're gonna apply it.
Well, there you have it, folks. Follow my man Geo Derice on all social media, baby. Instagram especially. Slide into his DMs. Tell him your favorite gem. And tell him that you bought 52 copies of Geo's Gems, too, while you're at it, too. Tell him... That's right. And then let him know the thirst was so real you bought 100 copies of that one, too, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
There you go. I told you, Dom, be careful. I don't know. You're going to have to go into whoever you work for. You're going to have to say, hey, sorry, I have to go now. I clearly outperformed myself, and I have been called. My services have been solicited, and I can't go anywhere no more because I just did such a good job talking to Geo and queuing it up. You clearly John Stockton, Chris Paul. You're the leader of assists. Like I'm catching alley hoops, man, from the lobs that you're throwing. This lob city over here. I honestly, I genuinely have appreciated this time together, man, of this conversation that we've had.
Woohoo! Glad the feeling's mutual, my brother. So, any closing thoughts before I close up shop?
Just do something from what you heard today. Don't get information obesity where you just take information in and don't do anything with it. So please do something with what you heard today. That's all I got.
You just got done listening to another powerful, power-packed episode of the Going North podcast. I hope you really enjoyed what you heard. You made it all the way to the end. You get to hear all sorts of goodness. I was the best, but you just got done hearing some goodness. Go check out the guest stuff. It's all in the show notes on the website, dombrightman.com, and also reach out to those that you've just heard as well. And keep rocking it, because you yourself are phenomenal for making it this far, and keep going north.